This is Chapter 2, Section 4, The American Revolution. So pretty much after the First Continental Congress, the colonists stopped buying British goods, and they demanded representation in the British Parliament. Also, colonists need to assemble these militia or these civilian fighting forces to protect themselves against the backlash from England, because obviously they were going to get mad that they stopped buying British goods and they weren't going to make any money anymore. So they needed a militia to stop British soldiers from forcing them to do what they wanted. So you have the Battle of Lexington and Concord happen. So in response to this First Continental Congress, the British military were called up by the British government to seize any kind of storage of guns or ammunition that the colonists were hoarding or storing for their militias. The British military were told to destroy them to prevent any kind of rebellion happening. 700 British soldiers marched to Concord, Massachusetts to seize a large armory where a lot of these guns were being stored, and to capture some of these colonial militia leaders, such as Samuel Adams. He was a big, patriot, and they wanted to take down some of these leaders. But the militia was tipped off that these British were coming by Paul Revere. The British are coming, the British are coming. This is when it happened during the Battle of Lexington and Concord. And so these Minutemen got ready in a moment's notice. And there was a small battle before they got to Concord in this town called Lexington. And eventually, 2,000 militiamen came and forced the British to retreat. It was the first battle of the Revolutionary War. It wasn't a very deadly battle or anything like that. It was just the first showing of, hey, we're not going to take this. We're forming an independent nation here. We're not going to take this from the British government. So this is kind of good pictures of the battle here. This is what militia looks like. Just regular guys forming. As you can see, it's like formal British military soldiers coming at them, and you just kind of have guys, coming together to defend their town or city. This is Paul Revere riding into towns, telling the people that the British are coming. So even though the first battle between the colonists had happened, most of the colonists, in all the 13 colonies, were uneasy about going against, England. There's a lot of what ifs by doing that. But if you were a patriot, you're someone that supported independence from England. And if you're a loyalist, you were someone that wanted to remain loyal to England and was against independence. So pretty much the patriots were saying, hey, look, they're not treating us well. We can do this. We can form our own independent country. They need us more than we need them. We have all the natural resources. We have all that stuff. They just need us to buy their goods. If we can manufacture stuff, we can stand on our own. We don't need them. But the loyalist argument was more, hey, we don't really have an army really right now. How are we going to protect ourselves? We don't even have a formal government separate from England. How are we going to do this? So Thomas Paine, he's a patriot, and he wrote this pamphlet to the colonists explaining that the colonies must be separated from England and they should form their own country. He's trying to convince most of the people in the colonies to join this patriot movement, to be independent. And it was named Common Sense, the name of this pamphlet. And it was dispersed. There was about 500,000 copies dispersed through the 13 colonies. It's a lot. To convince people that independence from England was the right action to take. That it just made sense to be able to rule themselves and to free themselves from an over-controlling British government. He said it just didn't make sense to be controlled by a government that was all the way across an ocean. Like, the colonies should be independent people themselves and rule themselves. So support for independence from England increased after reading this pamphlet. Like, okay, this does actually make sense. Like, what are we afraid of here? So the Second Continental Congress was to be established in the summer of 1776. So in this Second Continental Congress, delegates from all 13 colonies gathered together in Philadelphia again. The Congress appointed a committee. They decided to draw up a statement, a document, to the world, listing the reason why the colonies were seeking independence and their grievances with England, and why that they're going to become an independent country. People that were on that committee are John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. They were tasked, this small committee, to create this document to represent the colonies' interests. The document was to be referred to as the Declaration of Independence. So what it does, so what's in the Declaration of Independence and its purpose was to explain why the colonists wanted independence in the first place, and why they wanted to change their government. They thought that they had a right to revolution. Revolution is a change in political power and organization caused by the people revolting against an oppressive government. The colonists thought they were oppressed, and if the government is not nice to them, then they have the right to start a revolution against them, to change the political power. Thomas Jefferson was the writer of the Declaration of Independence, and he believed that England was taking away from the colonists' natural rights. We've heard natural rights before from John Locke. Thomas Jefferson had a little bit different take, slightly, that people's natural rights included life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you remember, John Locke said pursuit of property. Happiness could be considered, pursuing what you want to do, what you want to buy, happiness. So it's pretty much the same thing, just different wording. The Declaration also states that the purpose of the government is to protect those natural rights, and the British government were not protecting those natural rights. They were actually stepping all over them. So that's just another reason why the colonists should declare their independence from them. So the Declaration of Independence also states that the power of the government should come from the people, not from some kind of monarch or anything like that. The government should serve the people. And the Declaration also outlined that they are forming a new American nation and a new American government. That they don't need the British government anymore. We're going to be our own independent nation. And the American government is going to have democracy. Remember, we discussed democracy, which is the rule by the people. Everybody gets a vote. It's going to be fair. Remember, this kind of the colonists were angered by the taxation without representation. They weren't being represented. They weren't getting a say. So they want democracy. Everybody gets a say. Liberty and equality, because the colonists were not being treated equal compared to the English citizens in their opinion. So these are kind of like the three bounding principles in the Declaration of Independence in the new government. So this is the Second Continental Congress in 1776. The committee created this document called the Declaration of Independence. On July 4th, 1776, the Declaration was signed by all the delegates and was passed. Like, this is what we're doing. They all agreed, and so the Declaration of Independence declared the colonies have separated from England and have formed a new country. And then, thus, the United States was born. That is why, we celebrate the 4th of July. That is the day that we declared our independence from England, and the United States officially began as an independent country. It's our country's birthday. All right, this concludes Chapter 2, Section 4, outlining the Declaration of Independence and the start of the Revolutionary War. Here is the actual document and of the Declaration of Independence, and you can go see it in Washington, D.C., the actual document.